Hi everyone, I'm Tandy Hayes and I'm bringing you another edition of our Relatable Finance series brought to you by Regions Bank, where we talk to influencers to make everyday financial conversations useful, real, and simple. So let's dig in. Good morning, Amanda and Ashley.
Good morning, Tandy.
Good morning. So thank y'all for being with us today. And so we're going to go ahead and dive into the first question. Let's talk about, as entrepreneurs, what does financial confidence mean to you and how has that definition evolved since you first started your business?
That's a great question. So I think financial confidence to me just means having the knowledge and understanding of, how we run our businesses. We've certainly evolved over the years. Amanda here quit her corporate job when we had about 5,000 followers and probably were making about $500 a month just to pursue our passion. And since that time, it's been about 5 years now, and we've been able to grow into two thriving, or I guess really three thriving businesses. And with that has been a lot of financial understanding and how to run these businesses, where to put the money, how to invest our money, where to save money, things like that. So it certainly evolved over time.
So speaking of money, right, and growing that business, but being comfortable with, where you started, where you are today, how did you approach managing your money very early on, especially when balancing personal finances with your growing brand?
Yeah, I think as we started, we ran our businesses very lean. Mm-hmm. So we were wearing many hats, as we still do, and trying to keep everything in-house and not really outsourcing much. And as we've grown and kind of started growing that bank account, we've decided where we can outsource and actually spend the money to help our business continue to grow.
Mm-hmm. So what was your biggest challenge when you think about having that plan and figuring out where to move the money to and where to cut and where to spend?
Gosh, it's always an ongoing challenge. Just today we were on calls with talking about similar things like this with our COO that we recently hired. But yeah, I would say the biggest challenge has been kind of knowing like who to hire for the right positions. That's been a huge challenge, especially financial, because we're spending a lot of money on these people and not knowing if we're getting the return. So it's kind of been trial and error. Again, we start small with spending and see what works and then keep investing into the right areas.
So speaking of sort of that trial and error approach, talk to us about a time when you took a financial risk for your business. How did you decide, what was it, and how did you decide it was worth it?
We've taken quite a few. I think one of our biggest ones in the last couple of years was upgrading our app platform. We started off on kind of a smaller platform that didn't have a lot of different capabilities and tech support. And we started to research different platforms to switch over to. And it was a lot of work and a lot more money, but we've seen the payoff in tenfold just based on the capabilities of the app, the user experience, the checkout process.
Yeah, and it's hard to take those risks with spending more money, not necessarily knowing the outcome. So it's nice because Ashley and I actually differ. One of us is the risk taker and one of us is the more careful one. So I think it's a good balance, but she's always pushing us to
I had to
invest more.
Kind of force her to switch over to the platform, but you would say it's been a great decision.
Yes.
Yeah, as my grandfather used to say, it's one thing to spend money, it's another thing to blow money, right? So finding that balance, as you said, as what's going to really push your business forward and have benefit for you. So when you think about the financial habits or practices that you put in place or that you've tried over the years, what's one that's made the biggest difference for you as you've grown and developed your business?
I think one thing we've really enjoyed doing and is setting goals and forecasting for the revenue. We kind of technically have three different businesses, two LLCs, but really three different buckets of income, and trying to set really strategic goals for each of those, and then monitoring those goals has been really beneficial for us. And we find that when we write down our goals, we often tend to hit them, whether it's follower count or a certain revenue number or a sales number for our electrolyte company. There's just a lot of different goals, and writing those down has been hugely beneficial for us.
Yeah, because we can actually plan the steps to reach those goals.
So I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and I know watching my grandparents and my parents, you're talking about, how do you balance things, right? But when you think about setting goals, right, a lot of times your personal goals and your business goals, they intersect, right? And so many people struggle with separating personal spending from business spending. How do you set boundaries or structure to stay organized financially when it comes to both personal and business?
That's a good one. I would say, again, we started our businesses very lean, and we're in that like growth phase. So we're fine with spending less on our personal lives and kind of investing any extra money we have into our businesses because we know of that future payoff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done a good job kind of separating, having multiple different business bank accounts so we can track where the spending is going. We've really worked this year on kind of setting up our back end for having more categorization for those expenses and understanding where they're going for each of the businesses, and just, again, being able to track that. That's one of the reasons we hired a COO, an operating officer, the last couple of months, and it's been really helpful to help us just organize those expenses and the finances.
So speaking of personal habits, I know when we spoke prior to the session today, you mentioned your kids, right? And wanting to make sure that you're setting your kids up for success. How are you thinking about teaching not only your kids, but the next generation that financial literacy when it comes to money confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually heard on a podcast recently that somebody was buying their kids stocks at every single one of their birthdays and had the kid help pick which stocks to invest in. And I thought that was a great idea, something that I'd like to start, because I really think involving them early on in those decisions where appropriate is really beneficial. We have a savings account for each of our kids that we send money to each month, and just letting them know that. I think just kind of trying to involve them as much as we can is what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I was very fortunate growing up, like I said, in a family of entrepreneurs, mainly my grandfather. I paid a lot of attention to the things that he did, and I asked a lot of questions, right? And so was very fortunate to come into a career with financial literacy, financial confidence. What would you say to those individuals that don't have that opportunity through their family or even through their community to gain some of that financial literacy and confidence? What would you say?
I think there's a lot of free online resources. We started our business on a free online resource, Instagram, and social media. There's so many people that are giving great advice, probably some people giving not so great advice, but, just find those people that you trust their process of earning money, how to invest money, saving for your kids and everything. And I think you can learn a lot through those free online resources.
So thinking back across, your experience, what do they say? The best laid plans of mice and men, right? Tell us about a time when things didn't go as planned. Maybe something didn't pan out or something unexpected happened. How do y'all navigate those instances from a financial, but also from a confidence perspective, when you think mentally, how does that impact you?
Yeah, I think one that comes to mind is that we were going to start a clothing and activewear company, and we did invest maybe $10,000 to $15,000 in sampling and design and whatnot. And that kind of fell through just because we realized the process was held overseas. We didn't have much insight into the factory and whatnot. I think it goes back to taking those like calculated risks. That's what gives us some financial confidence. So that was a risk we took that it didn't even set us back. We honestly learned a lot from it. That was like our first business venture. So we really learned how to create a business, how to trademark. I think you learn from every milestone. And even though it didn't go as planned, now we can take more risks that are more calculated, kind of get feedback from our audience, what they want, and move from there.
What do you think the biggest thing you learned from that was?
That we really want to be involved in the process. Again, like Amanda said, is, a lot of the factories for producing clothes happens to be overseas. It's a little bit more cost effective that way. And we didn't enjoy not having that insight. So then when we went to start our next company, which ended up being a supplement electrolyte company that we run today, we made sure to find a manufacturer in Florida. We just felt like we could have more hands in running that business and manufacturing the product and overseeing the quality and all of that.
Yeah. And I think as much as maybe it's more cost saving to go overseas, we just really focus on the quality, and we really believe in the things that we do sell. And I think it comes across with our audience.
So when you think about learning, right, we learn from our experiences. What are some other ways y'all have invested in yourselves to keep yourself and your business growing, whether that's different tools that you've invested in, or different people, or even, education for yourself? What are some things that you're doing?
Yeah, I was going to say educationally for ourselves as women. We've gone through a lot of different phases. I've gone through motherhood and postpartum 2 times now with my 2 kids. So investing and becoming certified in the pre and postnatal fitness was huge for us. We also recently launched a new program on our fitness platform that's Pilates. It's a new workout style. So we made sure to get certified in that. So just making sure we're up on, all of the different certifications and educational components out there is something that we love to do. And then obviously investing in hiring the right people. We've made some mistakes there and had to figure things out, go back to the drawing board. But every time, like Amanda said, we've learned from what we've done.
So let's sort of swing over to the social media side of things. So when you think about your content and content creation, that looks very glamorous, right? For those sort of peeking through the lens. But behind the scenes, what financial lessons have you learned about running a brand or multiple brands in such a saturated social space?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think even when we started posting on social media, that was the term that our parents, our brother would use. And so it's so saturated. How are you going to make any money type thing? So I think even though it is a saturated market, if you truly believe in what you're doing, then that shows. And you can always find a way to differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
I
think everyone has a unique perspective, whether you realize it or not. Everything you've gone through up until this point in your life gives you that perspective. And you just have to really lean into that, believe in that, and keep going. Because, like I said, when Amanda quit her corporate job in commercial real estate, when we had just a few thousand followers and we're hardly making any money. And, we've grown a lot since then.
So when you think about your brand or brands for your followers, what do you think that thing or things are that actually set you apart?
Ooh, I would say one of our biggest ones, we focus on balance. So that 80-20 lifestyle, 80% of the time you are eating those healthy foods, getting your workouts in, and then 20% of the time you're enjoying yourself, having a margarita, enjoying that dessert. And I think that really resonates because a lot of what you see online can be like so in your face, aggressive. You have to be doing this, blah, blah, blah. But we really promote that like balanced lifestyle and sustainable fitness. So it's not get fit in 2 weeks. It's a long-term approach to changing your life.
Yeah, a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
All right. So as we wrap up, if you could give one piece of advice to other entrepreneurs about money, especially women building their own businesses, what would that be?
As far as growing a business, I would say stay lean as much as you can. Like Amanda said earlier, we wear a lot of different hats up until we just recently hired a chief operating officer to help us with some of the behind the scenes things. We were doing everything from marketing to social media to running our app behind the scenes. And I think you learn so much wearing all those hats. So rather than trying to hire out from the get-go, I think if you've got the time and ability, just wear as many hats as you can, learn as much as you can about your business, and look for who you can look for inspiration out there, because there's so many people that have been successful in this space or whatever space you're looking to get into, and taking some notes from their playbook, I think can always be helpful.
Yeah, and I was going to say use social media because, again, it's a free tool, a free way to access your customers and learn what people actually want. So it's been amazing.
Well, Ashley, Amanda, thank y'all so much for taking time to be here today to talk to us about your experience, your background in building your business, but also building your financial confidence. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.